You're listening to Conversations Ignite.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today I'm joined by Sabrina Osso. She's the founder and CEO of Osso Safe. How are you doing today?
Very well, Robbie. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad to have you on today.
Me too, me too. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, you're very welcome. So, how did Osso Safe come about?
I have been in and out of therapy for quite some time and comfortable enough to say that I am a survivor of violence. My father beat my mother on a regular basis. My mother would beat me, so I know firsthand how difficult it is to live in that type of environment. And actually, Also Safe was born out of a one woman show that I wrote, choreographed, and performed. I'm a dancer. I could not mention dance in my house. I couldn't even talk about it. It was kind of like an understood rule. So it wasn't until I moved out that I how do you say uh unstole what was stolen from me. As victims, that's what happens when you live in that type of house. Your life gets stolen. So I pursued dance. Luckily, I live close proximity to New York City, so I was auditioning heavily. I was taking classes, training, and I wrote a one-woman show, like I mentioned. I had performed it with my dance students at the time, which was really great. But I played different women being abused. She goes to her good place. That's where the dancing comes in. But then she's pulled back into the terror of violence. The show ends really strong, really empowering. And I did a lot of research for the show. And Robbie, I could not believe the statistics that I was finding. And I said to myself, I need to make this into a business, a bona fide business with products and services that could really help people. We're not a charity, we're not a nonprofit. So that's how Oso Safe was born. And the title of that show, by the way, is Home Sweet Home question mark. And I hope to revive it one of these years soon.
Wow, what an amazing story. Now, can you tell my listeners kind of what Osso Safe does?
Sure. We create and maintain respect in workplaces, schools, but in particular in your place of residence, in homes, through education and technology. So um, I thought long and hard about this. What makes a safe home? What makes us safe? You know. And a couple of people said to me, love. My father loved me, quote unquote. My mother loved me, but love is supposed to make you feel good, not bad. So, and we use that word a lot, love, 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 especially in the United States. So I said to myself, it's respect, respect. So if we make respect a required standard in all homes via documents, via education, via the practice of respect every day, well, really, that changes the game for the real estate industry. So our core product is the OSO Safe certification for properties. Um, I could go into detail now or later, but that's the core product, and I wanted to explain what that is.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Uh, we're saying to Now, mind you, we want all properties to be also safe certified. So whether you live in a townhouse, a co-op, a condo, a single family home, a multi-family dwelling, a two-family home, a villa, a mansion, a mobile home, a senior community, a dormitory, our goal at Oso Safe is to get that property Oso Safe certified. So what does that mean? Um, right now, we're focusing on the landlord tenant portion of the industry because that's the path of least resistance. So we're saying, Mr. and Miss Landlord, hire us. We'll get your property Oso Safe certified. They purchase the Oso Safe Home Sweet Home package. It consists of a policy, a seminar, an app, and therapists assigned to the property. So just to give a brief description of those four components, the policy basically states, I as a landlord, I promise to provide you a safe space for you to live. You, in turn, as my tenant, as my resident, you promise to not act in any way, shape, or form abusively. Otherwise, you, the abuser only, gets immediately evicted, expelled from the premises, and we go into full knowledge knowing that that would be the consequences. So there's no surprise. The second component is a seminar. Everybody, Robbie, is required to take the Osso Safe Home Sweet Home seminar. And that seminar explains facts, statistics, warning signs, definitions of abuse, the difference between abuse and discipline, what constitutes a good relationship, what are the warning signs of a bad relationship. So that way you know, oh, I didn't know that if I pull my partner's hair, that constitutes abuse. Now you know. The app, I hired a software company to develop an app according to my specifications. And this app, it's the Osso Safe app. It detects violent-like movements and captures them in real time, issuing alerts to the landlord. So let's say a landlord has 10 units. Oh, I just saw you beat the crap out of her in my unit 2. You just beat the crap out of him in my unit 10. This is grounds for eviction. You knew that this was going to happen. You are held to a higher regard, a higher standard in an Osso Safe certified property. You have to go because I have to protect the rest of my tenants. And then the fourth and final component of the certification, our therapists are assigned to the property. So we have therapists, they're part of your home life, a part of your residency. You are required to check in with your therapist once a month. Is everything okay? Excuse me. Do you feel like anything is looming? Just to give an example, well, Mr. and Miss Therapist, our kid came home with bad grades. We don't know how to handle this. We're not going to beat him up. We're not going to verbally disparage him. We know better than that. We're held to a higher regard, a higher standard in an Osso Safe certified property. But help us through this. We don't know how to handle this. Maybe he's being bullied. Maybe his teacher said something, help us through this. So all four components working together makes for an Osso Safe certified property. Our logo gets placed outside of the property. So that way any vehicle or pedestrian traffic driving wanting to know, well, we want to live somewhere. We have kids. Wow, I know what that logo means. It means that they have the mechanisms and systems in place. If and when violence happens, I would rather raise my kids in an Osso Safe certified property. Even if you're single, it doesn't matter. We don't single out anyone like, oh, you look like an abuser, you look like a victim. Absolutely not. This is a blanket education, a blanket certification for everyone, whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you're cohabiting with your boyfriend, girlfriend, an ex, grandma, grandpa, an aunt, an uncle. It's a blanket certification. And I want to point out, Robbie, this is very important. In addition to everything that I mentioned, children have a say. We are giving them voice and choice, Robbie. We don't wait until they are 18 years of age for them to have agency over their lives. Quite frankly, that's too late. When you wait that long, those kids that are not safe at home, they will resort to drugs, alcohol, gang related activity. They will get involved with the wrong people, the wrong relationships. They will self harm. They will start cutting themselves and ultimately commit suicide. Why? You don't have to wait till they're 18 years of age. In an Osso Safe certified property, we are teaching children speak out, speak up. If mom, dad is attacking you, stepmom, stepdad, we will, and there's an aunt, for example, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, a close family friend that's willing to take you in, we're going to get you there. but you have to have the courage to speak out. And we know it's scary, kids. We know. And maybe they'll lie, right? They'll lie. No, no, no. I'm safe with mom and dad. But we know at Also Safe that abusive parents can only keep their poker face on for so long. Sooner than later, their abusive true colors will come out. So we are teaching them through our book, and the book is a staple in all Also Safe certified properties. It's called Home Safe Home for You and Me. And in the book, I'm teaching children the difference between respect and disrespect, abuse and non-abuse. And I am saying to them, know that for the moment, which means right now, you are safe. To plant that seed in their head that don't think about the past, don't think about the future, just stay in the moment. And I know that would have helped me growing up in my house. Like, wow, yeah, just this moment and that's it. Just to plant that seed. And I'm also saying to kids, you know who makes you feel safe and free and respected and good. You kids know. So it's giving them voice and choice. It's giving them empowerment and saying to them, you don't have to live with abusive mom, abusive dad, abusive stepmom, abusive stepdad. You get to choose in an Also Safe certified property. So all of these components working together, Robbie, makes for better residency, a better home, a respectful home. And quite frankly, this is better for business, better for the real estate industry, better for the neighborhoods, communities, societies. Um, so yeah, so I hope I gave a good synopsis of our core product, and we've been marketing this to the real estate industry to let people know that we exist, our products and services exist, and that to get us into their properties.
Wow, what an amazing community that you've built from this company. Um, so I really
Thank
love the
you.
you're very welcome. I love the part where you give you give children a voice, because a lot of the times, like you said, they're afraid to speak out. And it's amazing that you can create a place where they can talk, where they can feel safe.
Right, right. Yes, and I have to say this, I built the company uh you know like everybody assumes that, or a lot of people assume that women are always the victim, but that's not the case. Men can be victims and abuse is abuse. It's horrible either way. But children suffer the most, and we are saying to kids like I have personal and professional experience with this. The laws, the courts, the judges, the child protective service agencies, I have to say, they are making horrible matters even worse. And with our products and services, you won't need the courts. You won't need the judges. You won't need the child protective services. Everything gets resolved right in residency because, quite frankly, Robbie, that's where the violence happens. It happens usually in some type of residency, some type of home, like I mentioned, all of the categories because I'm a real estate agent, so I know all the types of homes that are out there. So, children are at the core of what we do. And I have to say, if I had my own product and service growing up, my reality as a child would have been much different on a positive note, on an empowering view. My mother and father would not have gotten away with half the things they got away with.
Now you had mentioned, when you go to stay at an Oso Safe house, there's a seminar that you have to take. Is there also some kind of training for the landlords?
Yes, yes. And when we say and also safe how like I said, this is a blanket education, so it's not like we're So wherever you are, wherever you are, whatever type of property you have, we're saying to landlords, property owners, property managers, hire us. We'll get your property also safe certified. So yes, the training uh, is also for the landlord, for the superintendent of the building, the yeah, definitely, like to look out for warning signs. This is a very it's an uncomfortable situation, but I have to say, I said it on another podcast, like the podcast host asked me, what would you say to landlords that are scared to do this? Like they don't want to get involved. And my answer is, and the podcast host liked that I said this, you are involved. You landlords, and I'm a landlord, we're involved by default. So when you hand over those keys to a tenant, you're involved. You hope that they all get along and that they practice respect and there's no fighting, there's no verbal, physical, sexual abuse going on. But let's face it, it's happening. I mean, I could give you statistics that are very alarming, and these statistics are not even the entire truth because so much of violence and abuse is not reported. But 1 out of 3 women will be beaten or raped in her lifetime. 1 out of 5 adolescent girls is abused by her boyfriend. 1 out of 3 young people will be in an abusive relationship. 1 out of 7 men is abused. 324,000 pregnant women go into the emergency room, not for pregnant related issues, but for abuse related injuries. 15 million children witness violence in their own homes each and every year. That's just in the US alone. Uh, 5 children a day are killed at the hands of an abusive parent, usually under the watch of a child protective service agency and or a judge in court with the lawyers, the laws. I could go on and on with statistics. 85% of all runaways come from violent homes. So this is huge. So we're saying at Osso Safe, it's to your advantage, landlords, property owners, property managers. You're already involved by default. So let's just talk about it. Let's get your tenants educated before something happens. And if something happens, we have the mechanisms and systems in place to nip it in the bud, if you will. It's a much better approach, being preventative versus waiting for an episode of violence to occur. Bad news travels fast, and then your respectful tenants leave because they don't want to deal with the screaming and the yelling and the abuse, kids crying, police is disrupting their home life. And then you're stuck with the abusive family. With Osso Safe certifications, we're flipping all of that. It's a much better approach.
Wow, those are the statistics that you gave. Those are pretty disturbing, um, and I'm sure a lot of people out there don't realize that this is happening. Um, I imagine that some of the landlords and the people that you work with don't realize what's going on. Um, and I can understand how some of them would want to say, "I don't want to get involved," but at the same time, like you said, they're already involved. That they're the ones that have the property, that have the mission to make sure that their tenants are safe. So what you're doing sounds like the perfect way to make sure that it is a safe community.
Right, exactly. Yes, and this has a positive snowball effect. I know when I was growing up, the neighbors, two houses down, it was next door, and then the house next to that. I can't tell you how many times they would come over and try to break a fight, and police would come and they would say, like one neighbor said to me, and I was a teenager, just ignore him, Sabrina. just ignore him, meaning my father. Meanwhile, he just beat up my mother, split open her lip. He banged her head against the wall. I have the x-rays. She's deaf in one ear. And the neighbor says, just ignore him. And I can't get over that. This happened a long time ago, but I remember it like it was today. Never mind yesterday. And how can you say that to somebody, a child even, like I was a teenager, and I know like anything would have been better than that. Because then you feel like an idiot as a child, almost like, what's your problem? Why are you complaining? Like, so what? Like, just ignore him. Do you realize that he just hit her, bleeding, police, screaming and yelling, pulling her hair? My mother would attack me. Um, how do you ignore that? It's like saying to somebody, just ignore the war that's going around you, that's going on. You can't do that. What should have been said was, I'm sorry. You can always come to my house. Do you want me to talk to your father and your mother? This is not your fault. Um, and any combination of those things. Or even if you don't say anything, give me a hug. Give me a shoulder to cry on. And none of that happened. And and people will say to me, well, that's how it was back then. I'm sorry, but that's not an excuse. And you want to know why? Because we are in 2025 and this is still happening with a vengeance. Because now we have the internet, we have social media, and I would say people are more aware and they're being more even. I want to say they're aware, but they're even more exposed because the internet has created another way to see the violence. But it all depends on what you look at on social media, So I don't want to confuse your listeners. We are big proponents at Osso Safe of pro social media. Big, huge. It's how you use it. It's how you use it. Like I have come to know so many podcast hosts, and this is thanks to social media. And we are so thankful for social media because we're able to connect, we're able to educate one another. But if you're going on the internet, if you're going on social media where you're saying things like, I can't wait to beat you up and I want to blow up the school and F you, and I mean, that's not what social media is for, you know. And so you have to use it correctly. You have to use it to your advantage and not your disadvantage. And I'm sorry, I think I went off on a tangent, but um, landlords, we're at Also Safe, we're making a taboo subject untaboo, and we are very positive at Also Safe. I hope I'm coming across as positive, empowering, encouraging. Um, because now, in a way, if landlords don't want to get involved, we're saying to them, okay, um, hire us. We'll do the dirty work for you. You don't have to do it. Just say yes. It's $125 per unit, regardless of how many people are in the unit. You could be a single person or a family of 3, 4, 5, 6 people. The education, the certification, the policy is all the same. We'll do the dirty work. You just have to say yes. And you're going to know how to mitigate this, how to maintain property reputation. So it's to your advantage, Mr. and Miss Landlord. I hope I answered the question or like the issue, address the issue of if the landlord doesn't want to get involved or if they're scared or any resistance of the landlord. you don't have to do it. We'll do it. We'll do the dirty work.
Yeah, it's nice to see how you work with them, um, which is very. If I was a landlord, it would be very uplifting to me to know that you're there to help me along the way to make sure that my community is safe. Now, you had brought up a great point about social media. Obviously, I love social media because we're on social media right now, but you really do have to use it correctly. There's great means out there, just like some of the stuff we're talking about right now. There's cooking videos. You can learn how to fix a car. You can learn all these awesome things. You can get some great entertainment, but you really do have to watch out for that negative aspect that's out there.
Yes, yes. Thank you for echoing what we're saying and for um, uh, uh, yeah, for agreeing or I mean, it's okay if we disagree, but for echoing the same mentality. You have to social media responsibly. It's kind of like you have to drink responsibly. You have to social media responsibly, and I want to say, and I'm glad you brought it up with entertainment. Uh, and two platforms that we use heavily, strictly for children, for kids of all ages, whether you're teeny tiny, all the way through high school and even college, university level, is the TikTok and the YouTube. We speak about abuse. We educate on what constitutes a good relationship. Kids, if you're dating, these are the warning signs. You don't want to repeat the same mistakes as mom and dad if you're not safe at home. If you're not safe at home, it's not your fault. You're not alone. These are some of the things that you can do when the fighting stops. All of these things are good. I wish I had that growing up, as a platform, some platform to reach out to. And but when you see people fighting or beating the crap out of one another, or they're like, I saw one and I commented, I think it was either on Instagram or TikTok. A father had his son on his shoulders. He was about to do a push up with the son on his shoulders, like sitting on his shoulders. And the mother, she didn't know that this was going to happen. The mother was behind the dad, and he takes his legs around her neck and smashes her face in his crotch with his child. And it was meant to be a joke, but I thought, how, how disrespectful, how like shocking, unjarring, and with the kid on top. And I commented, you're not a dad, you're not a man. I said to the boy, little one, I addressed them as little one, do the opposite of what your dad just did. I mean, the mother was embarrassed. She was completely embarrassed and humiliated. You could tell. So that is not social mediaing responsibly, And what was the point of that? What was the point of that? So, which brings me to pornography is a big driver of violence. And kids are exposed to pornography at a pretty early age. I believe the age is about, and this is boys and girls, as young as 8, 10 years old. And we're not talking about erotica. Erotica is about sexual freedom, sexual uh, empowerment. That's different. But pornography is about manipulation, domination, control. And um, there is a branch of pornography that I think a lot of people don't know the harms of it, and it's called BDSM. And all of most of pornography is BDSM. That stands for bondage, domination, sadism, and masochism. Horrible, horrible. And a lot of BDSMers are women. Women doing the abusing, they're doing convulsing, revolting, disturbing things on and off camera. And Robbie, they pose as upstanding citizens. Meanwhile, they are dangerous, they are abusive, they prey on submissive men, rope them into a relationship. And if these men have children, forget it. They get married, they date, they get engaged, married, what they live together. It's a recipe for disaster. The home is full of violence, abuse, chaos, dysfunction, verbal, physical, sexual abuse. And these women and men that are BDSMers, uh, they could be part of your PTA. They could be your next door neighbor across the street living behind you. Meanwhile, I have to say, they are the sex traffickers of our towns. And they groom children to do what they do. This whole master slave mentality, um, controlling, manipulating, dominating. I mean, it's right in the acronym, for crying out loud. And what's even more disturbing is that the courts see nothing wrong with it, and they need to see a lot wrong with it, and they deem it safe. Even Child Protective Services, I have to say, it's embarrassing. It's horrific. They will deem a child safe if they are living with a BDSMer. Like I said, these BDSMers are abusive on and off camera. So the courts, like they're saying it's legal, it needs to become illegal, quite frankly. So I've been making it a point to educate the public, educate listeners and people in general, because these women fly under the radar. Like you always hear about the men sex trafficking and men being the perpetrators. I'm here to say it's both. And children are always the victim. So pornography there was a great post that was, and in fact I'm going to repost it. What is it? Oh, it's slipping my mind. Pornography is the marketing department for sex trafficking. I mean, that says it all. That says it all. And I want to loop it back to children. These poor kids, what they're exposed to at such a young age. And, and there are good parents out there, great parents out there, that nip it in the bud. They're educating their children. They're setting good examples by not fighting with their spouse or their significant other, because they don't want their kids living in that type of environment. I want to say to your listeners that are parents, educate them about pornography. And when I say that, I mean, I know this is going to sound strange, but it's better that you watch a sample of pornography with your child to show them, look, little Timmy, little Sally, this is not what I want for you. I want you to be in a good relationship, in a healthy relationship. You see that they're choking and they're naked, and the girl is obviously in pain, or the boy, the male. I don't want that for you. This is not a healthy relationship. So that way, if and when they see it among their friends, giggling, laughing, maybe they're encouraged to consume it, make it. No, they're going to know, actually, my parents taught me this is poison, this is toxic, and I want a good relationship for myself. And I would advise that you do too, friend. I know I talked a lot, but this is a very important subject. Pornography, linking it into home safety, the respect, that needs to happen in a home. So thank you for allowing me to talk, 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 talk.
Yeah, no. I imagine that a lot of people don't realize that pornography and BDSM, I'm sure a lot of people don't even know what BDSM is. Um, so those are some things that people may never really think about when they think about abuse. Are there any other common examples of abuse that people might overlook or just don't even realize?
Yes, yes, and thank you for saying that. Yes, I've come across people like they don't even know what the acronym means, like BDSM. I mean, they know pornography, but so so it's about talking about it. It's about educating, and I know we know at Osso Safe that these are tough subjects. They're embarrassing. They're, like, oh, we don't want to talk about it, but you're involved. By default. This kind of goes back to the landlord being involved. You're a parent, you're involved. So, I want to say, to answer your question, um, there are plenty of warning signs if you're about to be in an abusive relationship. Everything from, and at first it may seem like everything is great, right? Everything is wonderful. Oh my goodness, he pays attention to me so much, or she pays attention to me so much. I never had this before. Wow, he or she wants me all to themselves. Be careful, because it might be too good to be true. And if they're telling you, you know, um, let's say you're close with your family or close to some friends, and all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, like abusers, they know how to rope you in. They have it down to a science. Um, they will start to isolate you, and that's what they want. So if you start to see people that you always saw, friends, family, and all of a sudden you would see them all the time, and now you're seeing them only a couple of times a week or a couple of times a month, they're roping you in, and you're feeling isolated. You're feeling like, hmm, I don't feel so good. If you're putting yourself down, if he or she is telling you, I don't want you to wear that skirt. I want you all to myself, or I don't want you to wear those tight pants, Luke, or, Stefano, or, um, I want you all to myself. Be careful. These are warning signs. Um, things start verbal, like it usually starts verbal, the put downs. You don't look good. Why are you wearing that? Oh my gosh, you're wearing that again? People saw you with that. Why don't you put something that I bought for you? Nothing is ever good enough for these people. Financial control is another big warning sign. And if they always want to pay for dinner, for lunch, and then they guilt you, well, I paid for dinner and I paid for lunch. How can you not let me look at your bank accounts? What, you don't trust me? Meanwhile, you just met the guy or the woman. You just met them. You're going out with them a couple of weeks and they want to control your money. These are big warning signs. Sexually, you're not comfortable with anal sex or anything that freaks you out or makes you creepy. These are warning signs. And you have to say to yourself over and over again, I deserve to be in a good relationship. I deserve to be in a good relationship. You have to drill that into your head over and over again, especially if you come from abuse. Because when you come from abuse, it's not so automatic. It's not drilled in you. What's drilled in you is you're a piece of garbage. You need me. You're nothing without me, and right away, definitely, like I said, it starts verbal, but then it escalates to physical. And the current episode is always worse than the previous, and the next episode is going to be worse than the current. This is always going to escalate, always. So if he or she starts, and I say she, there are women abusers out there. Like I said, 1 out of 7 men is abused. If things start to pushing, shoving, tripping, slapping, uh, handling you, like shaking you, punching, hitting, grabbing, you're, that's it. You have to leave smoke. You have to leave smoke. Now, if you're in a committed relationship where you're in a real estate um, contract, well, Osso Safe can step in and will step in. And like I said, we do a blanket education, a blanket certification where it's preventative. Like you get educated as a single person who's dating, and our seminar will teach you, oh, wow, I just learned this at a seminar. I'm dating this guy or this woman. Oh my gosh, I'm going to break it off. So you nip it in the bud. It's a much better approach to dating and pairing yourself with a partner. So I hope I answered the question as far as the warning signs, what to look out for, what if you don't know.
Yeah, and I love the fact that, like, in your seminars, you teach what to look out for. Now, if you've been in a relationship, and I would imagine it's pretty hard to kind of realize that you are in an abusive relationship. When you finally realize that, um, how can you get out of that relationship?
Um, I know it's going to take a few attempts, and I believe the magic number, I've heard 7 and I've heard 14. So we say at Osso Safe, there's no shame in getting help. There's shame in not getting help. So we are big proponents of therapy at Osso Safe. So we encourage people, if they are in an abusive relationship, try to get therapy as soon as possible, because a therapist will make you realize, oh, yeah, he did this and she did that and that happened, and yeah, my kids, they're scared to come home now, and yeah, because you're in an abusive relationship, and uh and a victim will always blame themselves. Usually they'll always blame themselves. So it's a matter of repeating the good advice, the getting over the that you deserve to be in a bad relationship and that it's your fault, and that you can't leave. Well, first of all, we say, like, if you're in a real estate contract, we want to say, call us, we'll get the property that you live in also safe certified, because then the abuser leaves. You don't have to do much other than keep him or her out. Like, you have to commit where, okay, we got him out or her. Um, uh, the landlord agreed to have Osso Safe here. So, like, you can't be in 6 weeks or in a couple of days, a couple of weeks. Oh, well, he or she said they'll change, and then you're on your own. You have to help us help you. You can't have one foot to healing and then your other foot, oh, well, I forgive him or her. No, no. So, um, yes, it's hard. It's difficult, but you have a choice. Either you stay in the abusive relationship where you're risking death. I mean, the statistics are what they are. You are risking, and these poor kids that are roped in these situations because of the parents. Um, like, you want to be a good example for your children, and your children want to know that you are safe, mom, dad. They want to know that you want good for yourself. That way they'll want good for themselves. Like, an excuse of my parents was always, well, we stayed together for you, Sabrina. I mean, it's just mind boggling. And in hindsight, the truth is that no, you stayed out of cowardness and doing the work. And I know there's fear, but you're fearing the wrong thing. You're fearing the outside world and a shot at a good life than beating the crap out of one another, splitting lips, like I said, head against the wall, pulling hair, police, the shoving, the pushing, the throwing of phone books and suitcases. I mean, what is there to be scared of after you've been through all of that? You know, I hope I answered the question. It's about perspective, and you're not helping the kids by and when I say stay, I mean, like, if you're just dating and you're in separate houses, then yes, break it off, leave. But if you're in a real estate contract, I strongly encourage that you get us into that property. I hope I make sense.
Yeah. Now, I do have a question. So, let's say you don't have a landlord or a superintendent. Say you are in a relationship and actually have a mortgage, own your own house. Can you call Osso Safe at that point also?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, right. If you live in your own home, and like a single family home, is that what you're talking about? Yeah, absolutely. Yes, yes. And that's the goal. That's the goal, to get every property also safe certified, no matter what the circumstances are. Yes, and I want to say we are speaking to the mortgage industry and the insurance industry, where you should be rewarded as a property owner, that you're getting your property also safe certified, because you are taking extra steps about regarding safety, regarding respect, regarding where no one's going to beat the crap out of the other. There's not going to be any verbal, physical, sexual abuse. There's not going to be violence, abuse, chaos, dysfunction. And we're not saying, we're realistic. We're not saying that with your spouse or your significant other, you're never going to fight. You're never going to disagree. Everything's going to be rosy. No, that's not realistic. You're going to have disagreements. You're going to have conflict, but it should never cross the line of abuse, not verbal, physical, or sexual. And this is where the respect comes in. That respect is the foundation. That is the guts of it. That's the DNA. Because when you have respect, uh, everything else falls into play. Then you know how to argue. You'll know how to fight, or like, oh my gosh, okay, I need to leave. I need to leave for a couple of hours. We obviously disagree. You're saying red, I'm saying blue. Um, I need to go. I need to call my therapist. I need to call a friend. I need to not talk to you right now. And you give each other space, and that gives it time to settle, to let the dust settle. That's a much better approach than beating the crap out of one another. The yelling and the screaming is so much that you're terrorizing your children, you're throwing things. No. What are we? Beasts, savages, barbarians, which is how my parents would fight and disagree, which was war. It was war. Um, so it's about getting the education. So the technology reinforces the education, and the education reinforces the technology. And it's a much better way to live. In fact, my assistant, we we did the seminar, and she said, "Wow, Sabrina, it's like a lifestyle. Respect is a lifestyle. What you're doing with the certification." And I liked that how she put it. So I said, "Can I use that?" She goes, "Of course you can."
Yeah, I really truly believe, obviously you're never going to be perfect. There's going to be arguments, there's going to be fights. But if you do it respectfully, and like you said, we all can get hot-headed, tempered, just walk away. And knowing when to walk away and having the respect to walk away, um, it really is the best way to handle the bad situation. Um, because you should never be in that situation where you beat the crap out of somebody because you're mad at them.
Right, right. Yes, thank you for echoing that. And I want to give Johnny Depp his whole situation as an example, that that poor guy. I I had thought at first that, yeah, he's another one, he's like all the rest, the other guys, that we were hearing about, beating up on their wife. But I love Johnny Depp. I've seen his movies. I love him as an actor and as a person. When I heard his trial, and I was seeing and hearing everything, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was wrong. It's her. It's her. Just the way he walked into the courtroom, he was scared, he was reserved, he was a victim. Whereas she, Amber Heard, she was walking in there, waltzing in there like she's the abuser. And he would say, I would walk away from her roping him in, like, and he would even get another hotel room so that way he would have a place to go when she would go crazy and beat on him and carry on and yell at him and verbally and physically abuse him. And he would do the right thing. He would walk away and go as far as getting another hotel room. And oh my gosh, that whole trial, I just, I learned a lot from that trial, I have to say. And he's a very private person. So for him to put himself out there and to get his reputation back, um, it was just such a great example for all of us. And he stood on that stand. He sat on that stand saying, I am a victim. And he's a guy, I am a victim of violence, and he was trying, luckily he got out. He he and he had the wherewithal to do it, right? He had the money to do it. He didn't have to stay in the relationship because she was the breadwinner. He was able to leave. And but yeah, like, I feel like you separate, like that's how you fight. You have to let it go, and that way you could heal, and then come back and say, yeah, I was wrong, or I see your point, or I got some distance and I understand now what you're talking about. It's a much better way to disagree or fight, if you will. It's the oh so safe way.
Yes, and You also give a great example because when you think about abuse and abusive relationships, you always think of the woman getting abused. You never think of the men. But and your statistic shows 1 in 7 men. It's hard for people to, I guess, imagine that, but it does happen. And I assume that if you're in that relationship as a male, it would be a lot harder to kind of do like what Johnny Depp did and take that stand. Um, I just feel like it may be a lot harder for a male to even say that they were abused.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, if you could say luckily, there is a lot more awareness with women being the victim. And I would say it's thanks to social media, and just the Me Too movement and all of these groups that are banding together and we see it, we see it. But I would say like the Johnny Depp, I think he gave a lot of voice to men to come out, and he stepped forward and said, "Yeah, I'm a victim." And I think he was an example, not think for sure, he was an example for other men to come out and say, "Look, if your wife or your girlfriend or your husband is beating the crap out of you and raping you or attacking you, calling you like you're not a man, you're a sissy, you're nothing, you're look at you," like what Amber Heard would say to Johnny Depp. I she actually said, what did she say? I didn't punch you, I hit you. And I mean, just or it was the reverse. I didn't hit you, I punched you. And like, are you serious? Like, you're out of your mind, lady. You are out of your mind. Um, and it hurts. Like it hurts. Whether, uh, yes, if you have a strong man beating a woman, that's gonna hurt. If you have a woman beating a man, that's gonna hurt. It's and if you have rings and if I know my mother would beat me with her rings on, and very painful. And I was a child, across the face, on my back, biting. I mean, just it hurts. The verbal abuse hurts, the physical abuse hurts, the sexual abuse hurts. I mean, and it doesn't matter, especially as a child, boy or girl, it hurts. It's very painful, and uh there's no excuse for it. There's no excuse for it. And uh so I encourage men, I know you have shame. I know women, it's shameful, but it's like Giselle Pelicot, that woman, that French woman who her husband was selling her um gang raped, like multiple times, drugging her and then having her raped by his friends, his colleagues. I mean, and she said, shame has to change sides. So it's the abuser that has to feel shame, excruciate, like shame for being the abuser. You know, that's who has to feel shame, not you, the victim. you know um and it kind of goes in line with my TEDx talk. I entitled it, "If you're a victim of home violence, don't leave, stay." And that's basically what I'm saying. Like, why should you leave? You're the victim. And if you have kids, why should you leave? The abuser is the one that's got to go, not you. So it's the same idea, you know.
So, what advice could you give to people that are currently in an abusive environment and want to move towards a safe environment?
Yes, it's worth mentioning again. Consider therapy. Um, and I know if money is an issue, I mean, you have choice with therapy, even if it's texting or online or physically going to someone, a therapist. You could go to your local, and you don't have to be religious, whatever your religious affiliation is, but there's churches, synagogues, and temples that offer free, free mental therapy. So try them out, and I know, you're going to have shame. You're going to, like I did, I said, what if somebody finds out? What if, somebody knows me? This is stupid. That's all the noise. Let the noise be okay. And you may have to try on a few therapists for size. Let that be okay. Not all therapists are created equal. You may have to go to a few to have it fit, and let that be okay. Um, so therapy is number one. Number two, um, try to do everything in your power, anything positive, to really anchor to anything positive. So that way you have the strength to not blame yourself for this horrible relationship that you're in, and that you're going to you're going you're going to get out of it, whether you get us in there. Also safe, and I'm not trying to be salesy by any means, but we're offering a solution that I think hasn't been introduced into the real estate industry, and it's in the real estate industry that needs to resolve it. So don't attack yourself for, I'm so stupid. Why did I get into this relationship? Why did I, like, it's my fault? Really anchor to anything good. It could be, I like my hair today. Um, I have, uh, wow, I have nice hands. Or, I want better for my kids. Um, I really liked this book that I'm reading. Anything to anchor to anything positive, because that'll get you through, neutralizing the negative. I hope that makes sense. Um, and I want to say, uh, you have to know that you deserve to be in a good relationship. And you have to be okay with being alone, because when you've been, you're in a bad relationship, the best thing that you could do once you're out of it, be alone. Don't date anyone else for a while. Let yourself heal. Let yourself, uh, go through all of the emotions that you're going to go through. Be okay with yourself, because you have a lot of healing to do with yourself. And don't jump into another relationship, because you could repeat the same mistakes. You could be dating somebody worse than previous. You want to know that, wow, I'm ready. I can date now because I'm good with myself, and let that take time. It, I would say, don't allow yourself to be in another relationship for at least 6 months to a year. You know, um, uh, go to, support groups. That'll help. Talking to other people that are in abusive relationships. I know it's, we have a website that they could turn to as well. And the typical answer is go to court, hire a lawyer, call Child Protective Services. That's all the typical stuff. But I'm here to tell you, Robbie, it's awful out there with the courts, the laws, the judges, Child Protective Services. So I'm trying very consciously not to say that, you know, because I have to say, so many lawyers. There are a few good lawyers out there, but I would have to say they're very few. A lot of them will just take your money and you were better off without one, I have to say. So but I hope I gave some good pointers, some good tips, some good advice.
Yeah, some really great advice. Um, Now, for anybody that's listening, that would maybe like to be a Osso Safe landlord, or even somebody that wants to join an Osso Safe community, how do they go about doing that?
Yes, as I mentioned, our website is ososafe.com. We're on all the major social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Um, and the two platforms that are dedicated just to children is the TikTok and YouTube. Our children's book is sold on Amazon.com and also other book selling sites. I'm happy to say, and that would be the best way. And like I am a real estate agent, so on the East Coast, so we will go anywhere. So if where are you based, Robbie?
I'm in Georgia, and my next question was just about to be, do you have Osso Safe communities nationwide?
That's the goal. Right now, we're in the tri-state area, the immediate tri-state area, but the goal is to go nationwide and then global. I've done quite a few podcasts in Malaysia, broadcasts from the Philippines, Australia, England, and yeah, we're getting such positive feedback. We need you here. So yeah, the goal, we'll go anywhere. We'll go anywhere across the country for sure.
Wow, that's amazing. You're doing such amazing work right now. I It's been an honor to have you on here. Just the influence and everything that you've talked about, how you're trying to just make it a safe space. Um, I can't thank you enough for what you're doing right now.
Robbie, thank you so much for the opportunity. This was so great. You were a great host, and thank you for the positive feedback. Because we don't know each other, we just met. So when we get positive feedback from the host, from your listeners, it's so encouraging. And uh, yeah, it's the way it needs to be. We all deserve to be oh so safe at home.
I like that. Oh, so safe at home. One more time, can you give our listeners your website?
Ossosafe.com. OSSOSAFE.com.
Awesome. It has been such a pleasure to have you on. I learned a lot today, and just it's been a great conversation.
Thank you, Robbie. Likewise, likewise.
Awesome. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to Conversations Ignite. See you next time.